Hello and welcome, Nicole. I'm so excited for our conversation today because the way we initially basically came together was with the Cards of Truth, because I was a student with the Cards of Truth and your course in 2020. And today, though, the topic, maybe we can bring the cards into the conversation too, if it aligns. The topic is more so on Kundalini energy. I have been following your channel and obviously you on Instagram, and I loved how you spoke about your experience and how you also finally a woman, honestly, because I only know one person that opened the conversation about the true Kundalini energy in the way that you have, because I feel like it's such a buzzword and it's so misunderstood, and most people that talk about it actually don't really understand what the energy is all about and how it's not all love and light all the time. It can actually create a lot of chaos if you don't know what happens to you, what happens in general, what it is, how you can work with the energy, and how it presents itself, basically. And the reason I wanted to bring you on is because it really much is my personal story that I haven't really shared a lot about at all, because I never knew how to put it in words or how to explain. Because for me, my Kundalini experiences started very, very early on, and I suppressed them a very, very long time without even knowing that I was suppressing anything, without even knowing that that experience that I had when I was a child was Kundalini energy, which we will sure dive into moving forward in the conversation. But first of all, I want to let you join the conversation and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to hearing your story because I actually haven't heard it yet. And my name's Nicole Brenny, and I have developed my career around astrology, the Cards of Truth, tarot, and life coaching. And in the last couple of years, or I guess the last year, I've really transitioned from more of a reader to pretty much a full-time life coach. So I really love all those different spiritual modalities, but I've really also created a system in coaching that's really empowering and also kind of helps people to undo mental conditioning that really keeps them from their full power, which you can't really be completely 100% in your full power if you're not connected to your divinity and you aren't fully awakened. So it ends up being a really huge spiritual process for people as well. And so that's been so rewarding this past year, because I feel like astrology, the Cards of Truth, all of that can give us an intellectual understanding and take us really, a large part of the way in our healing. But then if you really want to dive deep, you kind of have to do the real tough nitty gritty work. So that's kind of what I've been doing a lot in my career. But if you go to YouTube, Listen to the Stars is my channel. It's youtube.com/listen to the stars. You're going to see a lot of videos about astrology and the Cards of Truth and things like that. And then most recently about my Kundalini rising is what I call it. But if you look at that from the Christian context, the language would be union with God. So there's a bunch of videos on there about that. So that's a little bit about me and where I'm at and where I started. And we met during that Cards of Truth period where I was teaching the cards, which I still think is an amazing system. But it wasn't until or the union with God, I'm just going to call it union with God and Kundalini rising interchangeably, which I think is different from Kundalini awakening. But you will see people on YouTube calling Kundalini rising experiences Kundalini awakening. But I think they're different because you can have your Kundalini awakened, but not fully risen. And once your Kundalini rises, it's like you can't go back. Basically, it's a full transformation. Yeah,
it is. It's like, and that's truly, where we can even bring my story shortly into the context, because my Kundalini was awakened very early on, but then when the rising happened and I felt out of control, I really suppressed it for a long time. And I mean, for me, it started in infancy, baby. I don't even remember, just because the only thing that I do remember is that it always happened during the night, and I would have cramps and like kriyas basically as a child. And
so let's define what kriyas are, because I was just about to be like, what the hell is she talking about?
So define Kriyas, because you have you just recently had I think it was an Instagram live. Is it on YouTube as well about the Kriyas?
Yeah, if people really want to go deep with this journey for me, because we're obviously not going to be talking hours and hours, but I have hours and hours of videos on my Instagram page, which is at Nicole_Brenny. So it's like there I kind of just did all these lives where I go in depth to little topics.
Yeah, because just to put it into context, the reason I also wanted to bring up because of that video about Kriyas, because I think that's like a part of the Kundalini rising experience that is not really talked about, and it keeps people very much in isolation because they don't know. And I think you even have a video on that, how to even be in society or partake in life, because they happen so suddenly. Even, I mean, just right now I have like a very intense Kriyas, and it's just some days, I mean, I'm in pain, I'm in just fucking suffering, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do life, you know? But anyways, I let you define Kriyas.
Yeah, and like I could even probably go into like a meditative state, and maybe you'll be able to see Kriyas. I'm kind of actually wearing like a good outfit for that because I don't really have anything covering my chest, but actually let me show it, then I'll explain it. So let's see if it, I don't like to be very performative with this because it's a sacred sort of thing.
I mean, I have them in my hands, for example, then it's just like these movements, and you just, it's just like an electric shock that moves through you, and you just don't have control. Sometimes I'm just loosening my grip and I let something fall, you know. It's just like,
oh wow, it's really like that. Okay, so for me, like I will go into a meditative state, and after my Kundalini rising, I just can get into a meditative state like almost automatically. So I'll just do that quickly. I don't know if you could see like my chest kind of rising and falling. It's very, very subtle, but just as soon as I start to get into a meditative state and take an inhale, that inhale could have been held for like, I don't know, a really, really, really long time. It was holding for a long time, so I stopped so the video wouldn't be boring. But even in that inhale, you could see the movement of my chest going. And I don't know if it's like clear from a different angle. Let's just see. Maybe you can see it better, but
I can also demonstrate because one of my modern that you have to process.
Yeah, but you can see, like, you can just see that little bit, but basically what a kriya is a spontaneous movement that happens as a result of yoking. Yoga is the meaning of the word yoga is yoke, to yoke something, like two oxen. So it's a result of you being in union with your breath, yoking to your breath. And so it's movement that is one with the breath. So my best way of explaining it is like, if you've ever yawned, you know, when you yawn in the morning, you have this spontaneous like stretch, and it's like a very, very, very deep stretch. It goes deeper than you normally would ever
stretch. You think you couldn't even stretch that much? It's insane sometimes.
Yeah, so it's like a yawn, but it's like a prolonged yawn, or it's more like you're connected into that. And so, yeah, and I'll explain more what it's like, but it's basically, sorry, my cat misses me. I was sleeping upstairs and he's downstairs. So he's like, oh, I'm so happy to see her.
Cats but anyways, love Kundalini energy.
They do. It's spontaneous movement that I'm not in control of that. When my chest was moving, all that in that beautiful rhythm or whatever, like that's such a beautiful rhythm. I could never like consciously make it do that. It does it on its own. And these kriyas, we'll get into this later, but these kriyas can be so wild, like you're literally doing a headstand, or you're doing advanced yoga poses you've never done before, or advanced breathing techniques that you've never learned anywhere, and it's all happening on its own, and it gets crazier. But let's see if you have like if you can show any. But it's like hard to be performative with it, because as soon as you're like, oh, somebody's watching, you're not as like,
because you're not in control of that energy, right? It's just like it moves through you. But for me, like even as we speak, it really activates a lot of that energy in me anyways. And so usually that means that my face, then that's why sometimes I just feel like hiding, because my face, there's always so much happening. So let's see if there are things. Mm.
So yeah, you can definitely see a lot of like, and if you can see like what's happening with her, it's like rhythmic. Like sometimes it'll like go through several different times the same sort of movement, almost like.
Yeah.
Does it feel for you also that it's like releasing some energy or some tension,
It does.
or it's like basically what it feels like is like it's actually healing exactly what needs to be healed at that exact moment that you're going into that state? It's just
Yeah.
like it is exactly what's needed. So like when you're bringing your neck back, that also happens to me a lot too. Like when I'm laying down, like my neck will always go like back in this like really crunchy
Mhm.
way, and then my chin will go forward really hard. And like there's never been like a chiropractor or a physical therapist or anybody that's ever been like, oh yeah, this is an ideal way to stretch out your neck, but it's like really far back or really far forward, and
Yeah.
it's doing it. And also the facial stuff, like I've experienced those ones too, you know, and you're like your face is like going
I
like in
do.
these ugly
And you feel like, what is, and it's interesting because I knew we would record today and I woke up with a sore throat. And there was a lot, like even in this morning, in my morning practice, there was a lot about throat. And I even screamed at some point. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely afraid to talk about this. And even now, there was just a lot of like relaxing in a way of my throat and just like, yeah, because it's something that is not necessarily pleasant all the time, but it is a healing energy. I always feel that, but yeah, it's just challenging sometimes.
Yeah, so and also I should bring to attention, so basically I think we need to like rewind a little bit for
Yeah.
people that don't understand the context. So Kundalini energy is like a creative slash sexual energy that it resides in the body that we all have, is always there. And what people will say, like from the Hindu perspective, it's like it's an energy that resides at the base of your spine, and then it must join with your crown. So it needs to move along and up the spine and join with your crown in order to be fully risen. And once it's fully risen, there are experience of maybe enlightenment or experiences of, well, enlightenment is like obviously like the thing that is sought after when people
Mm.
go to learn yoga or go to meditate in a cave to activate this energy. But alongside that can come different siddhis, which siddhis is SIDDHI, and that is like different talents and gifts, like the ability to be clairvoyant or see the future or to make yourself big, small, all these different things can come with that as well. So from the Christian perspective, I know people will disagree that Kundalini is not the same as the Holy Spirit, but I've really read a lot of the Bible since this experience. And this, for me, like this experience has been so like the word that I could use to describe all the experiences I've had have only been God. Like I can only relate it to God. And I'm not like a super religious person at all, even though I was raised that way. I've been so much more like spiritual and new age. But when I've gone through this experience of like my Kundalini rising, which I call union with God most of the time, it's just been such a deep connection with God, like just feeling all of God's love. And so, whereas like you're even kind of saying like it's like a little bit scary, like there are a lot of scary moments for me too. But usually it's like a fear. But as I move past that wall of like fear, like a fake fear wall, then I'm always like just enveloped in this amazing bliss. And
Yeah.
it's like whenever I don't surrender fully, or whenever I'm like faced with my own self, like that's when I'll have like those moments of fear that I work through. And then it's like, I don't know, like all the basically like all the love of God, which is like the most amazing love of the entire universe. And when you experience that and you rest in it, you just like what that's left me with right now in my life is like the deepest sense of peace I've ever felt,
Mm.
where I feel like even if I never achieve anything ever again, I never get anything that I thought that I ever wanted, like all these goals I had, if I never experienced anything that I've wanted in the past ever again, I will be happy and content. It's just like this deep peace. Like you're like, oh, I got what I came here for. Okay, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. Now I've experienced the best thing in the world and I'm good. Like I have that with me always. Like good things can happen, bad things can happen, and it doesn't really, you stay in such a state of equanimity through it all because you're just like constantly connected to God's love, which is like the most, it's not an intellectual thing either. It like literally feels fully like God's love is all around you. So yeah, so in this state, I think I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but this Kundalini energy can be called like the Holy Spirit. And in the Bible, it talked a lot about how like even Jesus's disciples were told when they were supposed to go spread the good word of God that they should not begin that work until they first received the Holy Spirit. And so there's a lot of quotes from the Bible that are like talking about you need to first seek the Holy Spirit, or like, you know, first seek thy kingdom of God, then you can do the work, because you really don't have any power unless through God. And so the Hindu perspective would be, of course, like you first need to get this technology activated, which is this Kundalini energy. And through that, you gain access to like a much deeper source of power and healing. And through that, you're able to actually truly help others. And I do notice that my perspective, like my range of like how I can help clients and what I can fulfill in my life is like it's exponential compared to before the experience, because it's like even just my knowledge, like the wisdom that you get from a union with God experience, like I don't even like, I can't even read books anymore. My client was saying that the other day too. She's like, I can't even read books anymore because it's like
it's boring. And that's, you know, I've never read a book just because for me it's always been like, okay, I read a little bit of it and then I get bored and I get the snippet out of it that helps me access the inherent wisdom that is basically, I mean, from the Hindu perspective, I see it more as from my perspective, I'm not as much coming from the Christian point of view, but I think we talk about the same thing. It's this union with the divine, with source. I always say source energy, or yeah, basically the origin of everything, right? And when we talk about Kundalini energy, and it sits on the base of the spine, which is also where the seed of all knowledge can be accessed. Actually, there's like a huge library of everything we could ever know. And that's the reason why people with a Kundalini rising all of a sudden have all of these insights about so many different things. And when we sit in a session with a client, for example, it's, you know, the energy moves through us and all of a sudden we spit out that knowledge and we're like, where did that come from, right? I haven't read about it. And it's also a big reason why, for example, in this lifetime for me, astrology, human design, all of these tools, they've been just second nature. I've never really studied it and I could never explain why I know these things, and felt like the biggest imposter because I've not studied with like a fucking guru for eons, right? Obviously sitting, contemplating about life and in meditation, that's what I've done all my teenage years. And that's exactly what you were talking about, this union with God, with source, with the divine. It's just such a sacred energy that you can have, or a sacred moment where you don't need anything else. And I think the only thing that really distracts us from that is when we let the world distract us. So I love that you also in your
and my cat
it's your cat, but you know, he's not really interfering. But also what you said, you know, people need to be ready for it. And for me, it's the energy, you know, I mentioned I'm scared sometimes. Not really scared, it's just I've been scared when I was a child because I didn't know what it is and how to navigate it. And only when I've really learned to understand what actually happened through me, I don't even want to say to me anymore, I was able to heal that relationship with my body, especially because the biggest thing that came from that early Kundalini awakening was me feeling out of control in my body because of it. Because there was just these things happening to me, and you know, sometimes I couldn't even remember the next day. So people were telling me, my family, were telling me what I was doing, and I was obviously terrified. But it now makes a lot of sense because I had cramps. So I had cramps and itches, and like not itches, stitching and a lot of like sudden movements. And my parents, what they did to me as a child, they made me walk around a table and eat a banana because I was just cramping so hard, and especially in my legs, because there was just, the biggest block has always been that root, lower body area. And so the energy wanted to really move through me, right, rise, but I was just like cramping like a crazy person or crazy child. So yeah, and that's why I started feeling out of control in my body. That manifested in, you know, anorexia, eating disorder, not wanting to feed that energy, because every time I eat something, even now, it just goes like wild.
Yeah, that is an interesting point that you bring up, is that like as you really take care of your body. So like this summer when I was eating 100% fully from my garden, and then the meat and dairy products I was buying were like from local farmers, like I would go to their house, or they would like deliver the stuff to me, like the fresh grass-fed beef, because I'm not vegan or vegetarian. I feel like my most energy when I eat animal products. So I get them like directly from the farmer. And I was also foraging my food. That was it. I was only buying spices and oils from the store. I actually feel like it all started when I ate some like wild amaranth. Like that's when like the energy was like, woo.
Yeah.
And amaranth's a very mystical plant if you read about it. But anyways, when I was really feeding myself in that way, it felt like the energy was much stronger. And then since it's become harvest time, and I didn't get to harvest a lot of late season stuff from my garden because it got some different blight and things like that. So I've like been slowly transitioning back to grocery store food. And I do feel a whole huge difference. Like when I eat food that I grew myself, which I consider, I have like a very different definition of sattvic than like a yoga book. Like I think sattvic food is food that like you personally within the structure of who you are is good for you, and like what you feel is good for you. What the original word, or one of the original meanings of sattvic, was life-giving. What is life-giving for
and
you?
I mean, that depends on your dosha and like the time of the year and everything anyway. So I think it's just, yeah.
So like sattvic for me is like, obviously like I nurtured these plants from a seed and gave them love every day and went and visited them every single day like they knew me. So I eat these foods from my garden, and I literally like my body's like vibrating with energy. Like it's not, it's just like and then the Kundalini is like, you know. But then I eat like the closest grocery store here that has organic food is Walmart. So like I eat some Walmart organic grass-fed bullshit from Walmart, and it's like my Kundalini is like, but then yeah, when I grow it myself, or it's like a delicious cake made by a friend or something, like that's so sattvic for me. It's like it's such a sattvic thing to eat something prepared by your friend, even if it's prepared with, you know, ingredients from Walmart. It's still like filled with love from your friend.
I think you can charge it up. It's all about what Kundalini energy loves is pleasure. So what gives you pleasure, and then the second you eat something that really gives you pleasure, it's just like, ooh, hello.
Right.
Because it activates that root, that sacral, that womb, especially for us women. It's just like, yeah, pleasure.
Yeah. And I think I should go back more to like, so people understand like, well, what is the kriya about? Why are kriyas happening? So basically like right before my Kundalini rose all the way to my crown. So my Kundalini has been awakened for a long time, and the most specific moment of its awakening was like over 10 years ago. That's like when I really was aware of it, even though just like you have had many experiences earlier than that I can recall where I'm like, it was around for a long time. It's just like you don't become aware of it until later on. And I had probably a period of 10 days this summer that amped up, where I started meditating more and more. I think this was a result of my ex-boyfriend, like meeting him, and his energy triggered the rising. I think, like, obviously we can't pin it on one thing. Could have been the amaranth, could have been him, could have been where we were traveling to, could have just been the
everything together,
whatever. But he definitely had a huge influence on it, I believe. And so like we had this amazing weekend up north in the forest. And then when I came back, it was like I was just drawn to meditate. And the way I describe this is kind of like when a woman's about to give birth, she knows what to do, even though she's never given birth before. It's like something primal within you. And it was like this Kundalini wanted to be risen. And like I knew exactly what to do, even though I had no idea what was going on. My body was moving in crazy ways. It was like, and I was like, okay. And the only thing that I wasn't like, oh, I'm going crazy. Oh, I need to call a doctor. Oh, this or that. I was like,
you're at
oh,
peace.
I need
You
to
trust, right?
yeah, I was
That's
like,
the
I
weird
need
thing.
to, it was, yeah, I was like, I just need to meditate more. So I started meditating 6 hours a day, literally 6 hours a day. It was like anytime between clients, I was meditating, after clients meditating, before bed meditating, when I woke up meditating. And I knew that the only thing that was helping this energy move through me was to completely surrender. And we were talking about like the range of Kriya. We kind of mentioned a few things where like, it's just, oh, my chest will move. So it's like, your body will move on its own, and sometimes it will move into yoga posture. So I'll just list everything that's happened to me, and you can list more because you probably have more. But yoga postures, weird movements of the body, weird facial movements, dancing. Like all of a sudden one night I was overcome with a sacred dance and started doing this like amazing, I wish someone was filming me. It was like the most amazing dance I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, you feel like if someone would see me, I had those dance moments where I was like, if someone would see me, they would probably cry, because it's like me completely being the muse of spirit. That's how it feels, and it just moves through you. You don't even dance. It's like something. It's beautiful.
Right. And like the one that I was put into was perfectly choreographed. There was obviously like a structure to it. And like I had my eyes closed. That's the thing. And I was dancing in my kitchen here, and I never hit anything. And I was spinning and turning, and like, it was like, how did I not even brush against any furniture? I was like, wow, I was so amazed after that. Also spontaneous singing, speaking in tongues, speaking in different languages, which I think is always tongues when I speak in different languages. I was singing in Latin one day. Like, I don't know Latin. Tongues is not something you can know, I don't think. Singing or doing anything to a degree of skill level you don't have. Like, I will be able to sing in such a way, notes that I've never been able to hit in my entire life, and beautiful songs that again have like a beginning, middle, and end that I've never heard before. Also, like singing weird techniques I don't know. Like, there was a time I was singing for 40 minutes, like, and it was singing on the exhale and the inhale. So lots of like different techniques that you've never ever learned in your life. Knowing different styles of pranayama, which is breath techniques, but also kumbhaka, which is holding your breath. So different styles of like pranayama, kumbhaka, bandhas, which are like holding your energy. Like, I'm apparently a bandha master now. I have like a 6-pack now somehow, just from Kundalini. I was showing one of my friends yesterday. I was like, look at my abs. Like, I have not exercised in over a year, and look at my abs from all this kumbhaka, bandha, pranayama, just from that. And the yoga is insane. And then mudras, spontaneous hand movements, which are very specific. And then also the ability to heal others. So sometimes if I'm around someone and I'm in that state, my hands will move and manipulate energy, also their breath. So
like signing,
it will.
I always like to call it kind of signing. You do with the hands, but it feels like almost like light language.
With the mudras.
Yeah. But no, like the healing for others. I mean, as well, like where you do something with your hands and you feel like you're manipulating some weird energy, but it's for someone else. I do that sometimes in sessions as well, where it's like, am I signing? Am I doing light language? I don't know. I'm just like doing something with your DNA right now.
Yeah, that can happen too. And then, with the weird breath thing, my breath will sync to other people. Well, I mostly experienced this with my ex-boyfriend, but my breath would sync to his breath, and it would like pull it and change it. And it would, so also alternate nostril breathing is another thing that it does it on its own. I don't like hold my nostrils. I can just do it on its own, and it will like link my one of my channels of breath to one of his channels and like manipulate it. And then also sexually you experience a lot of different things as well. Like that goes into like the tantra stuff, but after the Kundalini rising, like all of that changes completely. It's no longer the same. So there's a lot of different things that happen as a result. And now it used to take me like 20 minutes to 2 hours to get into a deep state of meditation. Now I'm like can enter it immediately. And there's a lot of stuff about like willpower and the will of God, which is like a whole different topic, but I was in a deep state of samadhi for like 7 weeks. I'm not in it currently. Like I wish I could be. When I started to exit it, it was like one of the deepest pains of my life, but I was in a deep state of samadhi for 7 weeks. I'm like, okay, only like the most enlightened people in the world can live in this forever. And I was like, am I going to live in this samadhi state forever? I was like, whoa, what did I do to deserve this? But I slowly came out of it. And that's like another thing that happens. But those are all like the kriyas and the range of kriyas that happen. And there's probably more that I'm forgetting. But the one that kind of to me scares me the most is when I'm speaking in tongues. That's really overwhelming for me. It's like also I should say like spontaneous emotional release. You might laugh or cry or whatever, like an emotion wants to go through. But yeah, that's about it for me. But it is really intense and it always feels necessary. And throat singing and like not growling, but it's like you're going to make noises and sounds. And again, none of these things are random. Like if I'm like making a sound like that, it's not random. It's like that sound might open up an energy in my chest or might like stimulate my vagus nerve or might stretch my back somewhat. It's not like you're possessed by a demon and a demon's making you growl or making you sing. It's like that specific note, that specific frequency is moving something in your body, and immediately you'll feel a release or you'll feel a vibration or you'll feel the Kundalini energy rising. I feel a Kundalini energy right now rising, just probably talking about it.
Yeah.
But so it's not like people are like, oh, well, are you possessed? And it's like, it would be impossible because one, I think maybe this is unique to me, but I have complete control over like when I want to experience these kriyas. Like if I don't want to experience them, I don't have to. And then two, it's filled with such a beautiful, loving, compassionate energy. There's like nothing evil about it except for my own fear around it. Like if I don't surrender to it, obviously I could hurt myself because I'm not surrendering. Just like if a dentist was working on your teeth with a drill and you got scared and you're moving your head around, the drill is going to hurt you and harm you, right? But the dentist is just trying to do his job. The Kundalini is just trying to do its job. It's, if you look at it from the language of Christianity, it's like the Holy Spirit is the helper that helps you to connect with God. Kundalini is just trying to help you and trying to heal you and trying to serve you. And then if you're just scared and fighting it off, like obviously if it's trying to, because your neck will just go and it'll go. And if you in the middle of that fight it, you'll hurt yourself, right?
Yeah, but I want to interfere because I would not agree with that you can control the energy because it's really out of like, you can, I mean, I know what you mean by that, but I feel like there's it could be a misunderstanding with that because I feel like you can only say you can control it or, yeah, I want to say work with it, right? And allow it to release itself when it is appropriate, I want to say. When you implement a daily practice where you also allow the energy to work with you and through you, because it's almost like togetherness, and if there's someone is suppressing it all the time, and again speaking from experience, it's not like, oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna allow the energy to flow through me. If it wants to, then the human has to get out of the way. And if the human doesn't do that, for me in my personal experience, things that happened were, for example, it was a buildup in my gut area, in my womb area, where I looked fucking pregnant. Wow. I had a lot of water retention. I fell on my knees 4 times in a matter of a few weeks. And only then, when I finally was like fucking sitting on my ass and really listening to what my body is trying to tell me, or Kundalini energy is trying to teach me, and that it just wants to break through, then I was better again, and of course I could have gone to the doctor, I could have done this, but it's what you said too, it's like, that this wouldn't help. Like a pregnant woman, what you have to do. You have to birth this baby now. And I was literally sitting there looking pregnant. I'm like, okay, we got to bring this baby to the fucking earth now. And I just have to surrender to it. I can't run away from it. And I just have to, build the trust and a relationship to it. And I think that's really what it also, for me anyways, was and is all about. It's a sacred relationship you have to do with the divine. And every time I sit and I devote myself every single day to connect with that energy and to let it flow through me, I learned so fucking much. It's insane.
Right.
And it's just about also learning to speak. For me anyways, it's always like I speak with it, you know, I speak with it, I ask questions, I'm like curious, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm like every day, what are we healing today in my physical vessel? Like, where is tension? Why is the tension there? Like, what can I learn, you know?
It is wild. Like, you really, it's never the same. And that has also taught me a lot about like the fact that we're always changing every day. Like, you think, oh yeah, my back hurts, so obviously today's going to be you're like, today's going to be a back day. And then all of a sudden it's like finding an injury deep in your tailbone that you never knew that you even had. And you're like, oh, this is interesting. And it just, but I want to speak to that, what you just said, which Kathy is being correct in that I do make time and space for my Kundalini. Like, I do meditate every day, and I'm meditating between, like, there are some days that I haven't been able to lately, but usually it's between 20 minutes and again, like 4 hours a day. I'm doing these Kriyas because I want to. It feels good. Like, I feel like I get
it's like a massage kind of.
Oh yeah, it's better than any massage or any chiropractor or any physical therapist experience I've ever had in my life. Like, literally, I was painting all day upstairs the other day, for like 4 days straight, and I was like, how am I going to survive the next day, because I have to plant 700 plants in the cold. And so I just laid down to do my yoga, my real yoga. And you can do yoga, like you can do this on the floor or in your bed. It doesn't matter. Like, I learned that the energy will meet you where you're at, and it will do what it can where you're at.
On the toilet, I swear.
Yeah, I'm just like laying in bed, and then like it's just like literally like the hand of God. Like, I just feel like this beautiful force like grabbing my head, gently pushing down, and then just going like everything is cracking, and I'm like, whoa. And then it's like cracking, and then it's like this energy is moving and pushing, and then it's like cracking me, and then I get done with this like an hour later, and my body feels like better than like a normal average every day in my life. But it's 4 days after painting 12 hours straight, holding a paint roller, like carrying heavy buckets of paint, like destroying my body, but I feel fine because it's like it just corrects everything, and in the most loving and gentle way. But it's like you have to be in a deep state of trust, a deep state of surrender, and a deep state of like devotion and love. Because again, if you aren't, I think it would be extremely terrifying. Like, if you were like literally questioning it, literally thinking it's demonic, fighting against it, I think it would be very, very, very terrifying. But I have,
and that's also
you have recently done the work. Like, recently you got there, you know.
And that's when people have, you know, again, and that's why I wanted to bring you in and talk about Kriyas, because I know personally people that have just Kriyas that from an outside perspective really feel out of control. Like, they scream because they never allow themselves to use the voice, you know, or to let that block in the throat chakra out, or they just have like these tics, right? Because they never give that energy the space and time in their day-to-day life to just do its thing to heal you. It's not there to harm you. But when there is this level of fear, then of course, then it can just be out of control.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I do the coaching work that I do, because I work with people on their mental conditioning, and we work a lot about fear and about surrender and about trust, trusting themselves, trusting in life, trusting in God. And it's not like I'm just like telling my clients, okay, yep, you got to trust. Okay, see you later. Just trust everything. There is so much mental conditioning and patterns and beliefs around that that's so specific to each individual that it really does help to like hire someone to address that, or take time out of your schedule, read books, like take classes to help you to work through these things on a mental level. It's also, to get to a purity of mind.
I want to actually speak to that because, you know, I mean, the best thing that you learn really through your Kundalini rising is that you don't do anything. The energy does everything for you, which it puts you into
Yes.
this place, what you mentioned before, so much peace, because you know you're not deciding anything in your life, you're not doing anything in your life, everything is done for you in the background through that energy. It literally plans everything for you, which brings me to what I was about to say. The synchronicities, the alignments, the thing that just all of a sudden pop up in your life and you're like, oh, right, you don't need to do anything. And it's never random when, for example, then all of a sudden a Nicole shows up in your feed, right? And you're like, oh, she does life coaching, and oh, she talks, you know, maybe that's all the energy helping you in a way, guiding you to a specific direction. For me, in my case, before I understood more so what was really happening to me very early on, and even, you know, continuing in my life, I kept seeing this man on YouTube, and I never watched, like on my explore feed, right? There was always this man, and whenever I saw him, I had this, like, my heart was activated, but I wasn't sure, is it like just a remembrance or is it like a fear? It was mixed, like both, because something in his eyes, and I didn't know who he was. I was not even looking into it. I was just like seeing it, and I felt the reaction. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna look further, right? Up until at one point, I clicked on a video finally, because I was like, this is not a coincidence. I've never searched this man. I don't know why he keeps fucking haunting my feed, right? And
Haunting.
sure enough, I clicked on the video and I started to cry the second I heard him speak. I don't even know what he said in the video and what kind of video it was. But the minute he spoke and I was like literally present with his energy field, I cried. And that happened when I saw him in person again. And he is my really, like, the only person that I've learned from what really is the technical aspect, or like the physical aspect and all of that about Kundalini energy. It's Igor Kurfayev.
Kufayev, yes. Yeah. I came across him because he was literally the only person that I could find in the beginning, like the first week. He's like the only person that spoke about spontaneous kriya, and because I kind of wrote this whole thing in my notes. I was like, this has to be like the real yoga. Like, this has to be where yoga came from. Like, the yoga that we're taught cannot be real, because.
And he's also debunking all of the fucking shit, you know. And for me,
he said what I thought.
Yeah, and the Kundalini community, or even like, I didn't even want to research it, like, never resonated with me. And that's probably also why I had resistance, because I think one of his videos was like the title Kundalini. I'm like, oh, not again, someone talking about Kundalini like that, right? And so that video that I saw with him, he was like literally debunking everything. And it was a couple of years ago. And then at some point I was ready to also go to an immersion with him, and I cried again.
Did you go?
I did, yeah, I did. I was at a 6-day immersion with him, and like out of this world. You cannot. It's
Wow. Okay, so you actually got to meet him. Yeah, I think that, I mean, when I watched him, I'm like, okay, this guy's legit, because you can't know any of this information unless you literally have your Kundalini risen. Like, there's no way. Like, and now I do find people will call, like, oh, if your Kundalini is risen, you're enlightened. And I think, like, technically, yes, you're at like some kind of a stage of enlightenment.
But it can also rise and put you into fucking shit if you don't know how to work with it and devote yourself.
Right.
That's what I mean. Like, it can create havoc. And people talk about it as if it's like, oh my gosh, that's like the most and more amazing enlightened state. And that's why I love to have the conversation with you, because it's not all sunshine and roses. And I don't like to be negative Nancy about it, but you need to have a certain level of devotion and dedication almost, and space in your life, right, to really let all of that process unfold. And that's something that we talked a lot about in the immersion. You know, even Igor, when he shared his story, he was just like, he lost his job, he was fucking in an existential crisis, but it was actually the energy making room enough in his life so he could literally only focus on that, you know.
That's beautiful.
And looking back in hindsight, it makes obviously more sense in his life now that he lost his job, that he didn't have anything but work with the energy during that time, because he also had issues with relationships and stuff and family. And so that's where we have to see the big picture. But people in that situation would obviously think like, oh my fucking gosh, my life is going crazy and I have these crazy movements, and like, what is fucking happening? I'm going mad.
No, I think it's so funny that you word it like that, because lately a lot of my clients are talking about like, oh, life keeps not letting me do what I want to do because of like a noise problem. Like all my clients, or not all, but a lot of them are going through that, where like life keeps blocking me from doing what I want to do. I'm like,
Maybe there's a reason.
yeah. And then I tell them, well, it's really funny because when I experienced my Kundalini rising union with God, it was like during a time frame of a few weeks where the noise from road construction was so bad here that I was like, I really wanted to work on music. I really wanted to work on poetry. I really wanted to work on my house, but the noise was so loud that I could not do anything. I couldn't work on my business or anything except for just take my clients and then like suffer from the noise. So then during those weeks, I think that's what made me want to meditate more, because I like literally had nothing that I could get done because of the noise. And I was just meditating. And I always tell them, like, when your life is limited, that's when like and this is like the language I used to speak, but when you are being blocked here, there, and everywhere, it's because life or God wants to put you on a very, very specific path, and like that's where God wants to meet you. So trust these limitations, especially if it's bringing you to like the most narrow path possible. Like it's literally the only thing you can do. You can't paint, you can't fix your house, you can't work your job. It's like all you can do is bake cookies. Well, you're supposed to be baking cookies then. If that's the only thing that you can do it, because that's where God wants to meet you. It's like if you're blocked
Again,
just
when
like
I mentioned,
Igor,
my story, it's like it started with, I had plantar fasciitis, I think you call it, or sciatic, basically on my left side, couldn't walk because of that, and then it healed. But I haven't learned my lesson from it. So still running around like a crazy person, traveling around and all of the things. Then it started on the other side, couldn't walk. And then it started on both sides. So it was like literally couldn't walk anymore. And when that healed, I fell on my knees 4 times until I finally surrendered, because I was like, okay, this must be a message. It's all with my legs. It's all with like not walking, not going forward. Like, I was analyzing it like shit, but the real thing was just, and I had less clients. I was just like, my life is going downhill. I don't know what to do anymore. So I'm just going to sit here and meditate, And then all of a sudden this huge release came, and like all of these downloads and insights. I wrote so much, like I want to publish books, and that there's just so much. And it was really as simple as you just have to sit down and let the energy work with you a little bit more in your life,
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, I think for everyone, there's like your own time frame, but I've been meditating for over 22 years. And so like, I feel like I really put in a lot of time, but I see with my clients, when I work with them on their mental conditioning and removing those blocks, basically, that come from habits and family and society, things start to shift for them very, very quickly. And they start to have these, like, actually I have clients that start to just focus more on this path, and within like a couple of weeks they're experiencing spontaneous kriyas. I'm like, or even a week, within like 5 days. It amazes me, because I feel like when you do have right guidance, things, and like you probably experienced this with Igor, it's like when you have right guidance, you can kind of go more on this sort of transformational path, or path of having a relationship with God or working with your Kundalini energy so much more easily. And I really do think, like you're saying, making time for this energy, I really go back to the Bible. Like I think about this all the time, of like, seek first thy kingdom of God. Like you can do nothing without first receiving the Holy Spirit. It's like, if you put your relationship with this energy first and foremost, and I do that, everything in life is so much easier. Like, oh, you have a really difficult presentation, you have a really challenging client, you have a really crazy creative thing to do. If you're coming from this place of like alignment and your Kundalini being at the crown, because my Kundalini is not at my crown all the time, but when it is, it's like literally God is working through me and I don't even have to think. And it's like literally I'm just like being held by God and God's just doing everything for me. Like I'm a little baby and God's just doing everything.
Like,
okay,
do take me. And that's, you know, I mean, I have a practice. I've been meditating since I'm like 13, you know.
Same with, yeah. So we have like the same.
Yeah, but like for me, I think what really came down to what I was not doing, and that's why all of my kriyas and like everything is very physical for me because of that. For me, it was all up here at some point, you know. I had so much like up here in my, I was not integrated in the lower parts where also a lot of wisdom obviously sits, and that's why I needed to learn how to direct the energy towards the lower part of my body, and especially because I'm also very active during my sleep, have always been. For me, it's so important in the morning to ground the energy into literally my toes. And I noticed that sometimes even during the night, it does that for me, where I'm like twisting my ankles, or I have these, like, it feels like I have a booty workout during the night because there's just so much like muscle, like, you know, contracting and releasing happening. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Maybe I'm going to wake up with a fucking booty. So it's very fascinating, but you have to obviously allow that to happen. And so, yeah, it's just, I think it's really important to, again, give that energy to the room and breathing space, because otherwise it will take it, you know. And again, if I have had a day where I haven't really focused on my lower body, then it happens during the night. And for example, last night it happened again, and today I'm like literally, I feel like I had a leg workout. I'm so tired. I'm like so like hungry. I'm like, okay, there was definitely something happening last night, you know.
So that's probably when you can be in like your deepest state of surrender, when you're sleeping. And I also want to mention something I think is really powerful is like when you are in that state, at least for me, you get superhuman strength. Like I had this mattress, a queen size mattress, and it's like a fancy one where it has like all the mechanisms inside of it to change. It's not a sleep number, but it's like another brand of sleep number that my friend invented. And it's like a super heavy mattress, like heavy duty, like electronics inside mattress. And I had to move it up the stairs. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to because I was excited that I just finished painting my bedroom and I wanted to sleep in there. And there was only me and this huge mattress and a really crazy staircase that like is not wide enough for the mattress. And I'm like, I want to move this. I'm like, all right, it's just me, but I also have God here. So I'm like, I'm going to go into God.
Let's face this mattress.
I was like, let's do this. So I started to do my breathing, you know, yoking with the breath, getting in there. And I moved this queen size mattress all the way up a flight of stairs. That was insane. But in the middle of it, I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I said that like in my head. And then all of a sudden the mattress starts falling. I'm like, I believe I can do it. I can believe it. I can believe it.
I believe I can fly.
And then like, as soon as I like believed that I could do it again, it was like, okay. Then I started moving it back up. And like this mattress is insanely heavy. I'm not even joking. Like I wish I would have filmed it because it would have probably been like one of the greatest feats of strength of the human race.
Jesus was walking on water. Nicole's doing magic with the mattress.
Right. Then a week later, my boyfriend at the time helps me to move my box spring up the staircase. And box springs are like, you know, heavy. Probably they're like a fifth of the weight of a mattress. They're so light because they're just the frame. There's no like padding, there's no electronics in there. It's just like the wooden frame. So we start moving that up there. Again, like I think the mattress went a little more easily because it could like kind of fold around the corners. But with the two of us, it was harder to move that box spring than it was for me, one person to move that mattress. And I was like, it just made me think like, wow. And the only reason I could do it was because I was in that state of like, every movement I was making with my body, like I had that mattress on my back like I was a turtle, like, but every movement was so specific and with my breath.
And it's, again, that's why I'm saying like you are not doing anything in that situation.
No, I'm just breathing, and then everything is happening.
Do it for me in a way. That's like where the true, you know, the Nicole couldn't do it. It was God doing it through you.
Exactly. And I think people, if you want to kind of know how this feels, I think if you are a musician or an artist or any kind of creative, if you've ever like written a song or painted a painting and you literally told people, well, something worked through me, that's the feeling. And runner's high, those are the closest things I can explain to you, like especially runner's high. That's how it feels.
Yeah, and I want to say that's, you know, I've always been, I mean, I'm not a mom, I don't know, but what I always felt, you know, when we talk about sexual energy, it's a birthing energy, it's creative energy, right? And so for me, what I know to be true, what resonates with me is for pregnant women, quite literally, if they have their Kundalini active and the Kundalini rises during birth, that's where they won't experience pain, because it's not them bringing the baby to the earth. It's literally source energy, God, however you want to say that, birthing this child. And it's superhuman strength to birth a baby. I mean, that's what I would say. So that's how you can say. And, you know, that's how distorted we are, because we don't trust that the capabilities of our bodies. So we go to professionals, and obviously there's room for that too. It's a whole other subject. But yeah, that's how you can understand how that works. It's literally, you don't even know what portals are opening and how much you can bend and stretch your body, and how much threshold and tolerance and the lack of pain. There's no pain happening at all. It's just bliss.
No. Oh, and I want to add to the list spontaneous belly dancing, because all of a sudden I was able to like belly dance a lot. And then also, yeah, like when I've had my period cramps, which I typically do, but they've really gone away since then, since this has happened. But if I do experience pain, I just go into that state, and then it'll do the kriyas to make the pain go away. So like pain is not an issue anymore for me, really. And then I wanted to say something about birthing. There's been like multiple times where I go into a yoga session, a real yoga session, and it will put me into a position where I literally have like, it feels like I'm giving birth. Like it feels like the muscles are moving and pushing out like I'm giving birth completely. Like I feel like this wave of energy and this push. And I'm like, if I was literally giving birth to a baby, that would have been like the easiest giving birth ever. But like, it's like
your pelvic, there's just so much vibration and the opening. This morning I had two where I was just like stretching my pelvic and my glutes and all like everything down there in a way where I was like, I'm not a ballerina, but I mean, I didn't know that you know, it was because the energy relaxes all the tension for you. So all of a sudden you are bendable, you're movable, stretchable, which you wouldn't be in an not meditative state. Like in my normal state, I can't do that, you know?
Well, one thing I wanted to say about that is that I think that also this energy prepares you for things too. So it's like, not that I'm gonna give birth, who knows if I will or if I won't, but it's like, obviously I have a biologically female body. And so I do feel like it kind of trains you for these things.
It knows your life even more than you.
Even like singing, like all of a sudden I was given like this like crazy ability to sing more than I ever have. Obviously I am a singer, but it's like all these crazy notes I've never been able to hit. So
I've always told you, Nicole, that the lyrics that you write, you have to sing them as well.
Thank you.
So maybe that's the preparation.
But really, it is really, really wild. And when I was in that deep state of samadhi, one of the things that I was spontaneously called to, like, this is when I say like a deep state of samadhi, it's like literally you're living in bliss, and like the will of God was working through me, like 100%. I'd open up my mouth and words would come out that I didn't even understand. And in this deep state, I was called to like buy a brand new guitar that I've always wanted, but it was like I wasn't really financially ready for that, or like, you know, like my life isn't ready for that. I don't have my music studio finished, but it was like, you need to buy this guitar now.
You just go to the fucking checkout and you're like, I don't know why I bought it, but I guess it was important.
Right. And the guy at the checkout was like, are you sure? Like I go in there, I make a beeline to the guitar. I grab the guitar off the shelf and I'm like, yeah, I need to buy this guitar now. The guy's like, well, don't you want to play it first? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Yep, sure. Pack it up. He's like, this is an expensive guitar. Are you sure? And I'm like, Same with my car. I bought that in a deep state of samadhi because I had to buy a new car. Like you guys are probably like, oh, why are you just buying all this random shit? Like I had to buy a car. I didn't have one. But like same thing. Like I drive it for 10 seconds. I'm like, I want it. They're like, well, don't you want to check like the tires and everything? Like logic does not matter when you're in this state.
Bypassing. It's like where sometimes literally I've questioned, like, have I lost my mind? In a way you have, but it's really your mind is not even operating. I've done things since my Kundalini has been really like extremely active in my day-to-day life, where I used to overthink every single decision. Now it's just like I'm in such a trusting and surrendered state every day where I'm just like, I allow it to unfold. You know, obviously I'm not reckless, but I feel like it's, again, like everything is happening through me. Like I'm not even deciding anything. Like I don't even have to, I even have to use the energy for making decisions, if that makes sense. It's like
No,
I go
you
into the
just
stores,
don't
I grab
think.
exactly yeah, exactly. You just don't think.
I
Your
mean,
mind is relaxed.
this has really taken my culinary ability to the next level, because I'll go into my kitchen and I'll go into my yoga mode, and I'm just grabbing random stuff off the shelf, like, and it's the most random stuff in the whole entire world. Like I made some smoothie the other day. It had like sage, watermelon, sea salt. It was just like the most insane,
like, oh,
like
remedy
no one would,
elixir. Yeah,
no one would ever put that stuff together. I started drinking it and I'm like, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever tasted in my life. And obviously it's like, I didn't sit there and logically think, well, sage tastes good with this and blah, blah,
no,
blah.
but
It
it
was
was
just,
like exactly the ingredients that your body right now needed for whatever reason. You know, you feel that I've noticed that too, where all of a sudden, like, I can't drink specific things, or my taste changed, or the things that I was gravitating towards. I was like, why am I fucking craving kimchi like a crazy person, or this for like a crazy person? Then me, the you know, curious person in me, I was like, I need to Google what message that is from like spirit, right? Like why? And literally that's always what I do, because that's how I learned. It's like, okay, maybe my gut is like needing whatever, or I don't know, it's just like it gives you exactly what you need. You just have to allow it, you know. And that's where for me it has been such a profound understanding in how intelligent, or how we have our own instruction manual for this physical vessel, but also for the alignment with source or God, however you want to say that, if you just allow it to work through us, you know. It's just like, you know, your physical vessel needs this right now, so you just allow the energy to give it to you in a way.
right. And you, just by you saying those two words, physical vessel, I think that is also a really strong point that we should bring to light here. Is I think we both come from the new age, and a lot of the rhetoric in the new age for the past decade has been a lot about like, we are spiritual beings inside of a physical vessel, and it's kind of like we have these meat suits and they're just kind of weighing us down, and you know, blah blah blah. Whereas I come from a school of thought, especially in the last couple of years, that really recognizes that because we live in a three-dimensional reality, we are on planet Earth, our bodies are so extremely important. And I do think that a lot of why I've kind of integrated this energy very well and kind of easily over the past few months without a lot of like the trauma related to it is because I have really in the last couple or few years taken really great care of my body, in the sense of like eating food grown from my garden and surfing and being in the sun. And also we really don't have these experiences except for the fact that we do have a physical body. And I actually created some art around this where it's like we literally only see color because we have eyes. We only experience this because we do have a body. And of course we have a spiritual, you know, our spiritual vessel is a part and inside of this physical vessel. But when this Kundalini is awakened and this technology is active, you really realize the beautiful instrument that your body is.
Exactly. It pushes you into the body. That has been the experience for me in the most blissful and amazing way, because you learn so much about, I want to say it's an instrument of the divine for me. My body is an instrument, a sacred vessel for that spirit to flow through me now. And before I had such a fear relationship where I was like, whenever I'm in my body, oh my gosh, I lose the connection to spirit, to source, which is the inherent wound that every single human has, right? The disconnection after birth, which is actually an illusion, because again, spirit lives in you. Like you are a spirit in that physical vessel. That sounds maybe not as sexy as it could, but it is. You are the divine instrument, and that's really what the energy is teaching you. Because it for me sometimes it literally feels like, you know, someone who is orchestrating in a music theater. He's just like doing his thing, and the divine flows through him, and he's just like manipulating and working with the energy that wants to come through, and these beautiful tones and vibrations and sounds come through, and movements and everything. it's just a whole fucking orchestra, and that's what you are. That's why we dance with the kriyas. That's why we have those, you know, movements. It's us being the dancer of that frequency, but that's only possible in the body.
I feel like they call that like the dance of Shakti or something,
Shiva.
Or Shiva. I don't know what. No, they're. Oh, Nataraj is like the archetype.
It's like Shiva's dance.
Yeah, I thought that was Nataraja for some reason. Nataraja.
Durga also has a dance, obviously, everyone.
Yeah, that's Nataraja. Yeah, Nataraja, the Hindu god
Durga.
Shiva in this form as the cosmic dancer. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So we're both correct. I just don't know enough about archetypes. But what I was going to say with that too is like, I think it's, you know, we have so much physical illness in this world and we age and all this kind of stuff. And there is always this link between Kundalini and immortality. And there's some people that believe when your Kundalini is awakened and you do this, that, or the other thing, you literally transform your physical vessel into an immortal body. And maybe that's the case, but we don't know. But I do think it's like,
I mean, what I can say is that Kundalini energy saved my ass a few times because I had a couple of near-death experiences. And also like my physical state, you know, I was at such a low weight where you couldn't humanly not exist anymore. But then I've always had this like, even, you know, when I was born, I was actually too weak to live, but then something was just moving through me. And I guess that's really what kickstarted also this very early awakening, my birth experience, which I obviously chose from like a higher perspective. So yeah, I definitely believe that it can save your ass, because that's again like, you know, the human in me might have been like, I want to exit this planet, but then there's God, source, saying not yet, you have a mission still, you're still here, so we still get you activated every single morning. We make sure that your heart is beating, we make sure that you breathe, right, and we just move through you.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is I think that we all, like before this experience too, like we're all walking around without this incredible technology activated within us. And it really, life changes once this technology is activated. It is a technology. It's like every morning or every afternoon or 4 hours a day, I can be in this like healing state that gets me perfectly aligned. Like I had been going to the chiropractor twice a week for a tailbone injury, and a lower back problem and a shoulder injury. And it served me a little bit, but just in a month of having this Kundalini activated, there's no pain anymore. Like it's just what can happen as a result of this in terms of healing body, mind, and spirit. Like it's even emotionally, I've had so many emotional attachments in my life. And like now I feel like I have none, because I just feel so peaceful in the love of God. Like I really feel like a nun, you know, like I feel like I could never be married, never have children, never date anyone ever again, and feel such a state of satisfaction, just like a nun. Like, no, I'm good. Like everything's good. Like hopefully I'll still be married and have kids and whatever it is, have some type of a family. But even if I never did, it's like, there's so much healing on every single level. And you really understand, like you have a deep embodied knowing that like everything is working as it should. And why is it working as it should? Because it's happening, and you trust in what's happening. You don't try to hang on to some past idea of what you thought or some future hope of what needs to happen. You're like good in the present. Like me and you talking right now, this is like exactly perfect. And we can just rest and be cozy and happy, and you really can feel just like this amazing feeling of like surrender in this moment. And we're not like trying to be anywhere else but here, you know?
No, and it's like, again, like the two of us, yes, we have the conversation, but it's like the energy in that way wants the conversation to be out there for the public for whatever reason. Because I mean, I kind of sense the reason is because the more we shift into, I want to say more so the age of frequency, Aquarius, however you want to say that, and I see a connection also astrologically or like in like Uranus and Taurus, breaking the physical vessel open in a very electric way. That square to Saturn, breaking the structures of even the physical body and capability to think about it. It's like all aligned for more and more people right now on the planet having those rising experiences, because our consciousness rises. And we see that anyways, where so many people are connected to their spirituality more than ever, more than ever before, because of obviously the pandemic and everything. So I definitely feel, and that's what I reached out to you, we needed to have that conversation, because there's still the question that I started with, how do we live, quote unquote, with that? Because for me, it's like, when you're in it, there's no way you want to go back, and there's no way you can go back, quote unquote, into like the way you used to do life. It's like you do life in a completely different way. And yes, there is for a lot of people the huge question of like, what the fuck, like how do I speak to my family? How do I speak to friends that I used to have? Like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to be in isolation with God? Or
No.
how do I partake in society? And that's again where the trust comes into play, because that energy is also making sure that you are good, in a way, if you just trust.
And that's also where I see some people also online that have experienced spontaneous Kriya, and they start to like isolate themselves from the world. And I feel like that's kind of why they haven't fully integrated the energy. And I'm probably making some assumptions here, but it's like, I don't think that many of us that are here now experiencing our Kundalini being activated are meant to like go live on a hilltop somewhere and isolate. I think we're supposed to be living these normal human lives as Jive and Mukti.
I think we are meant to share that vibration that we carry, because it activates other people just by being around us, honestly. Like, I've witnessed that in my own life, where all of a sudden people are just activated by the aura that the energy also creates around you and within you, that state of bliss and peace and contentment alone. But then also there's something happening in your DNA structure, literally. So it is, and that's why, talking about the age of frequency, and I see a lot of DNA and like aura things ever since, I'm connected to that energy more. So I know that it does something in your vibratory field. And that's why I feel like we need to be probably in the midst of fucking a city in order to illuminate the fields.
Right. Yeah. I just don't think that like isolating, I think it's kind of an awakening of like, bringing it into society, because I do think my thoughts are that some of those more enlightened societies, like, the Egyptians, Atlantis, those are people that were awakened, and you can see it in the artwork. You can see it in the general like theology of these ancient places, that they were likely enlightened or awakened, and that is why they were capable of such superhuman feats. Whereas nowadays we're very much asleep. And I do, like, obviously I can only speak to my own experience, but I do know what I'm capable of now is so much different than before. And I know even when I'm truly 100% living the will of God, which obviously that's what I strive for all the time, but I'm truly in the will of God and not in my selfish Nicole will, life is better. Like, it might be harder for my ego. Like, it might be things like, I thought I wanted that, or, oh, I wish that would have worked out, but life is better. Things work better. The result is better when I'm living the will of God. And
you can compare it, to, again, like the physical thing of, okay, I go to a chiropractor, I have to pay them, I have to make my way there, I have to schedule an appointment, I might have to wait for the appointment. That's all. Of course, the human can take care of it and is in charge, and congratulations. Or you just have a 10-minute meditation session and you feel even better. It didn't cost you anything. You didn't have to go anywhere. That's how you can compare it. Yes, you can do everything yourself. Congratulations. You won't get a reward for it, right? Or you can just allow it to unfold.
Right. And that is the beautiful mystery of it all. And I really think the biggest takeaway I've had from just understanding the spontaneous Kriya is really just that, like, we can't deny the physicality of our spiritual experience because we are on planet Earth at this time and we're in a human body. And I think that the more that the New Age community tries to deny the importance of the human body, they will be doing a disservice to themselves. And I think as you begin to develop spiritually, like as a community, the New Age people, I'm speaking to the New Age because that's where I come from, like the astrology, the tarot, the cards of truth, like the more that you embrace the physical vessel and what it can provide for you in terms of your spiritual experience, that's when you do experience your most spiritual connection. And I mean, even if we go back into the cards of truth, and I don't even like to bring astrology and cards into it necessarily, because I always think like it can be somewhat limiting in a way. But Ernst always said, my teacher, Ernst Wilhelm, who I learned the cards from, always said like the diamonds, which is the earth element, are always the most spiritual, because the more grounded you are, the more spiritual you can become. The deeper the roots of the tree, the taller the crown of the tree.
You are an 8 of diamonds?
Yeah, and I am an 8 of diamonds. And
I'm a
the
3 of
card,
diamonds.
yes, you are. And the and I think that's very apt in the sense of like the more grounded and rooted in your body that you, and this is the laws of this dimension, and we have to work with where we're at. And I think a lot of us tend to escape the reality that we're in because we want some better reality. But when we do that, we lose all of our power. And so we're in a physical vessel, living in a physical reality, and being able to powerfully work within that is like my aim in life. And that's what I help clients to do as well. But I think that, you know, we're probably going to reach like more of a new age audience. That's a lot about that path of empowerment, is embracing like the fact that we have a physical vessel. And when that technology is activated and you're really able to feel what it means to be in a body, well, then you have true wisdom, because all true wisdom is embodied. And that's
what I said, you know, the knowledge, the seed of all knowledge sits literally in the chitta, in the root chakra. It's down in like the lowest chakra you can have, and it's down in the base of everything.
Yeah, and you can't really have wisdom unless it's embodied. Like people will say like, oh yeah, I can intellectually understand that, but is it really embodied? Not yet, you know. And so that's when the knowledge starts to, or the wisdom starts to really come in. That's when knowledge turns into wisdom, is when it is in your physical vessel. And I think like that's kind of that's like the next trajectory for many people.
And that's also the message and why I wanted to talk about it, because again, there's also this chance of feeling out of control in the body even more when that technology turns on. And that's why I think it was important now, especially now moving into Scorpio season, where Kundalini is very active, and eclipse season. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing your wisdom. I feel like we will have a part 2 of this conversation for sure, because there's just so much to cover and talk about. So whenever you feel like you want to talk about anything, let me know. The projector loves a good invitation.
Of course. And I will say that even though a lot of people do feel out of control in this energy, I have not felt out of control. Obviously, I am in a state of surrender, and I'm allowing something to come in, God to come in and move me. But I've never felt like scared, or like the fear that I feel is like very obviously like my own fear projection on what's happening. And as soon as I go past it, it's not scary anymore. But I do know people do feel,
though, it is because of your preparation for it. You know,
it's because I've meditated for over 2 decades, and that's what understand. I mean. Yeah. So,
and
but I will
that's
say
not the usual human experience, you know.
Right. And I do think like if you are working with someone, like I am able to help my clients to navigate a lot of those things that come up, because I've walked that path for a really long time. So I do think sometimes having some guidance or a teacher or some outside support can be helpful, but it is a very self-guided, like the Kundalini energy itself is intelligent. It knows the process and how to take you through it.
And it's different for everyone. That's why, you know, yes, you can have guidance from a teacher, but he can't tell you where it gets stuck or where there's a knot and where there needs to be unblocking and, you know, what will happen. Like it's an intelligence on its own. And that's the beautiful thing, because it's your own sacred relationship with your own source. And so that's why I feel like it's so empowering as well, because it takes you away from there's a guru or whatever that teaches me how to heal myself. No, it's actually there's a healing technology inside of your body. You just have to reconnect to that.
Right, which I always tell people, I can't force you to have union with God, but I can remove all the blocks to get you to the doorway that you can then yourself decide or enter into. I can take you to the doorway, but I can't push you through the door, you know, and that's true. That's all that anyone should expect from a great guru or teacher. I'm sure you experienced that with Igor. Like Igor's not being like, yeah, I can get you to do spontaneous kriya. He would never say that.
He's also not saying I'm activating your Kundalini or I'm helping
or I'm giving you Shakti pot or any of that bullshit. Like this is, and people, like, I did have like people, try to claim, oh, well, I did that to you. I activated that in you. And I'm like, you are absurd. Like, I had multiple people come out of the woodwork being like, I activated that in you. I'm responsible for this union in you. Like, they didn't say that straight up, but it's something only you can do within yourself. So I would be very wary of people that are like, yeah, I can give you a Shakti pod transmission. But as you're saying, when you're around people where it's awakened, obviously things start to shift, but that is in relation to your readiness and your own preparation, and not because someone's enforcing something on you. So yeah, I do appreciate us clarifying that a little bit for everyone. And thank you so much for our nice coffee morning chat.
Afternoon for me, but for you it's the morning. Thank you as well.
Morning for me.
I will link everything where we can find you, obviously, down below in the show notes for those on YouTube, and in the podcast show notes, info box on YouTube, show notes on the podcast. Oh my God, technology. But thank you, Nicole. And definitely let's stay in touch, and maybe we can have a conversation 2.0. And let's see what other superhuman abilities and moves you're going to make. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions for either of us, but I will check the questions or the comments below the video, and I'll try to answer anything too. So, and if there's a lot of questions, then we'll do like a part 2 answering them maybe or something. But I'm happy to answer any questions because I know it's a weird topic.
I would love for everyone actually to leave, especially on YouTube, if you would like us to talk about something specific, to meet again, then definitely leave it down below as a request or something, and we can see what we're going to do.
There are so few videos on this, and when I was experiencing it, I was like searching high and low for anyone that experienced this besides me. So like, I totally get it if you're like, what the hell? And I would, obviously I don't have all the answers, but I can share more experience, and I feel like
share our experience
is good.
Perfect.
Okay. Have a
Thank
good day.
You so much. Have a good day as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.